That's so important, open communication and
Yeah.
knowing that there's not going to be backlash or
Right.
knowing that if there's anger, that's okay.
Yes.
You talk through it. Why are you feeling that? And the other thing is when our emotions come to us, just a reminder is that our emotions come to us for a reason, right? Like they're there to tell us a story.
Okay.
Pay attention to what just happened. What can you either learn from that or what is happening that you have to fix, or just pay attention to that, right?
Welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. I'm Laura, happily divorced after spending years with a narcissist. I believe keeping secrets will make you sick and that they always come to light in the end. As women, we're often told to be quiet, don't share your story, don't talk about the things we go through. It's making women sick, sad, and suicidal. We don't have to be on the other side to share our story. This show is for the women still in the middle of the mess, but showing up bravely as they heal. It's time to share these stories with each other so we can learn, grow, and heal together. I'm Laura, and that's where I'm at. Please take note that this episode may contain subjects that may be triggering to certain listeners. Please take care when listening today.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today I have Diane. Diane is the founder and CEO of Advanced Mind Health, a virtual, no-repeat client therapy practice specializing in helping professionals eliminate intrusive emotions, self-sabotage, and substance use habits in only 1 to 3 sessions with a 99% success rate. Diane began her rapid transformational therapy practice after helping her late husband navigate through his 20-year struggle with bipolar and alcohol use disorder. So welcome, Diane. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. For the listeners, Laura and I have been chatting a little bit already. So it's like, isn't she just like one of those old friends that you just see and you're just like so happy to hang out with? So
I'm so
it's a
glad
pleasure
you
to
say
be
that.
here.
Well, I'm so glad you said that because, I was like, we're not going to have any trouble talking about anything. We seem to get along just fine. And so you could work with Diane too, but Diane's my friend now. So that's how I feel. All right. So some of this we have to be serious, I guess. But tell me about how you got started with doing that, how you even thought to even help your husband in that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be real about therapists. I mean, I have a firm belief that all therapists have been through their own trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that wants to help other people, right?
Yes.
Whether it be whatever journey that you went on, when you get through it, that's the first thing you want to do is inspire and help other people that are where you used to be.
Yes.
And I came from a home that was kind of unpredictable and tense. My parents stayed together for the kids, which was never a good idea. We begged them to, we did. All three of us were like, please get a divorce.
And people, and you know what? I kind of want to touch on that just for a second. People don't talk about it. I've met somebody recently who stayed together. He said, we had a business arrangement. And I'm like, I don't know. That just sounds like for me, it sounds like a wasted life, because why would I want to stay together?
Yeah.
And I know it was hard for my kids too, even though I didn't know that I was staying together for the kids. It sort of ended up being what happened. You know what I mean? And it's
absolutely
hard.
Yeah. And the children feel that stress, right?
Yes, they do.
And like we talked about before, our minds, which is what drives our behaviors through our whole life, are formed between the ages of 0 and 7.
Yes.
So when you're witnessing, a lot of people say, well, my issue is genetic. And I say, okay, but when I work with my client, I help them understand in their case, and which is many cases, that it's generational because they grew up witnessing the behavior. Yeah. Right. And Marissa Peer, who trained me in rapid transformational therapy, this is her method. It's amazing. But she says we live what we learn. And that's an old adage from years ago. So this is how I grew up. I grew up as the peacekeeper, right? I grew up in between my parents and in between my older brother and my younger brother, who were always fighting. So I was always trying to keep the peace. And then I went into the arts. I was a stage manager for many years, so worked with many different personalities. And my skill, which I had grown and crafted, like in my personality and nature, was fawning, right? They say fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So I could mimic the person that I was communicating with in order to be liked, in order to get what I wanted from them, in order to fit in, all of those things, right? For years, I did that.
Me too.
People, exactly. Well, that's a defense and coping mechanism, right? It's like, and people still do it to a degree, right? Like they want to be liked, they want to be pleasant, etc. But when it goes beyond that, it's unhealthy.
Right.
So
especially if you're not being true to yourself. You know what I mean? Like if
absolutely,
but maybe like me, I don't even know what was true to myself. Like what was true, right? Because it'd been so long of kind of morphing into whatever everyone else needed from me. So to keep the peace, because I'm a peacemaker as well, peacekeeper, whatever, as well. Now I know, like from a biblical standpoint, I'm a peacemaker. It's like I walk in the room and I want to have peace, and I can make peace without losing myself. That's the kind of thing that I want to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a different way. But that was a big revelation for me, like leaving my marriage and going, who the heck is Laura? Like, who is she? For 56 years or 55 years, I had been morphing into whoever else, anybody else needed me to be, so.
Absolutely. Because we are in survival mode, right? Like you said, we're giving to our kids, to our families, to our careers, to whatever we have to do to keep things safe around us, right? Even though we're kind of dying and a wreck inside, as long as we can control things or seem to control things around us, right?
I want to make a comment. I want you to, this is just a random question, but when people talk about like midlife crises, right? Or not only that, but when the kids are grown and gone and now you're left with just your husband and say you like him and you want to stay with him, but now you're left with yourself and you're like, who am I? Right? So don't we have, even though it feels like a midlife crisis and who am I, it's like you kind of do ask your question because you have been giving so much of yourself. Are you, I don't know, what do you think about that? Have you talked to people like that? Do you see that in your walks in life? Don't you see that with women going, I don't know what to do because they've never had to do anything or they've never wanted to do anything?
Absolutely. And it's so unfamiliar to them, like you said, where they're like, I don't know who I am, because those are the people that are have decided to take care of, right? Of everyone around them. I think this new generation of women, thank goodness, sees their mothers, sees that they've been losing themselves in providing so much that I think the words self-care are really trendy amongst the new generation of women in social media and whatnot, which I love. It's essentially ensuring that you have a relationship with yourself, as well as the people around you, your family and friends, that you know how to step back for your own peace of mind, that you know how to clear your mind, that you know how to praise yourself, right? A lot of my clients come to me saying, I have these blocks. I used to be so confident when I was younger, but as I age as a woman, I'm losing my confidence. I want to step into my power. And it's like, when's the last time you looked in the mirror and said, hello, gorgeous, And they're like, oh my God, I couldn't do that. And it's because it's so unfamiliar. But when you start to do that, your mind is listening to your words. Your mind follows your words and your visualizations, right? And so when you make that familiar, that becomes a permanent and natural part of you, that you accept yourself, that you love yourself, you feel your self-love growing, and your self-love growing grows your confidence. Like we
Yes.
were all born like feeling that sense of worthiness and
Right.
confidence and self-love. Like this is why babies cry in the middle of the night. They don't say, "Oh, my parents might be sleeping. I don't want to interrupt their sleep." Right? It's all
Nope.
about
Oh,
me.
yeah. I don't want to bother anybody. Oh.
Exactly. But guess what? We start to do that as we get older. Obviously, there's consideration, but it's like we put ourselves very last because sometimes in our life, we are given the suggestions, we're given the experiences as a child that we attach the wrong meaning to, right? Somewhere along our childhood, we
Right.
begin to doubt ourselves. And those beliefs turn into, or those feelings turn into beliefs. And those beliefs that are in our subconscious mind, they're hidden to us, but really our minds look for patterns, right? And this is why we go into toxic relationships as young women, because we don't think we deserve more, right? We attract what we think we are worthy of.
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah.
I did the same thing. Like I said, was saying
Yeah.
before, when I went in from this toxic family, I went right into a toxic relationship. Now, at the time, I had a high level of confidence. I was like, I'm not going to be with a man just for the sake of being taken care of. I'm going to
Right.
university. I'm going to get a career. I'm going to support myself. I'm going to have an amazing life. I'm going to be free. I could do what I want. I don't have this toxic parents and relationship around me anymore. And then literally 2 months into my first year of university, I met my husband.
Oh.
And we were together 27 years. And 7 years into the relationship, that's when he had his depression crash. Although just before you started recording, I was saying that I found some material just this morning I was reading, because he left from 20 years of struggling with depression, which led to alcoholism. He was in and out of rehab 3 times. I stood by him. I was like, well, if you had cancer, I wouldn't leave you. But,
Okay.
you have this illness. Why should I leave you if you have
Right.
this illness? Right. And he got really ugly sometime, but he never wanted to drink. He tried desperately not to. And every time he did or he relapsed, the guilt and the shame and the remorse would come back. And then what would be the only thing that would help him out of that, is more alcohol, right? So goes the cycle. And one of the rehabs that he was in, the first or second, it was local, and I was working with a lot of his counselors there. Like we had spousal support groups where we learned about addiction and we talked about the behavior of our addict and how we responded to it. Sorry, we don't say addict anymore, but this is in the 90s, right?
Okay.
Our family member who was struggling with this disorder, right? And so we had a lot of support, and the counselors were amazing. And at one point, when my husband had been sober for quite some time and finished the program, they asked him if he wanted to come back and be a counselor. Like, he was a highly educated man.
Oh, that's great.
He had 2 degrees. He was in education. His average was like well over 90 in all his courses. He was a university sociology seminar leader. Anyway, he was just so brilliant. And he was also a brilliant artist and musician as well. So right away, that kind of highly sensitive person is open to suggestions, which is even the negative ones, which is how someone develops this critical inner voice to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not resilient enough, even as a young person, to resist that.
Right.
So when I heard them ask him if he wanted to be a counselor, something in me kind of went, that sounds like an amazing job. And I almost went into university for psychology to be a counselor, but I ended up going to my first love instead, which was theater, and into arts production and management. But so when I heard him say that, I thought to myself, someday, somewhere, I'm going to do this.
That's awesome.
And so, like I said, 3 decades or 2 decades in and out of 3 rehabs. He never wanted to drink. This is why I stayed with him. But now, and the whole time, he kept journals of his journey. Every day that was part of his healing was to journal. And so I have a massive box of books that I've started to go through, and I'm going to transcribe them and write a book from not only his perspective, my perspective then as the spouse, but what I know now as a self-sabotage and addiction therapist.
Okay. Oh my gosh, how interesting that you're going to do
Full circle.
that.
Absolutely. But he passed away. He was 6 years sober when he passed.
Yeah.
And I felt such freedom right away. Like when he passed, I mean, the last 6 years of his life, he was sober, but he was so highly medicated. Like he was kind of like a zombie.
Yeah.
He said to me, he said, I don't feel sadness anymore, but I don't feel joy. And he had to leave all the things that gave him joy. He couldn't go back and play as a musician because the gigs would be in bars and that would trigger him to pick up. And he knew he would be dead if he did, right? He retired from his career of teaching, and that's what gave him joy. But he knew he couldn't do that anymore. It was too stressful for him. So when he first passed, I like watching him pass away because it happened very quickly. That was really painful. But once he passed, it was such relief. And then I didn't start grieving till about 3 or 4 years later.
Wow.
Where the freedom kind of wore off, where I said to myself, you know, I could do anything I want, whenever I want. And I did. I traveled, I dated. So it was when I started going back into this dark period of grieving that lasted a couple of years.
Wow. Okay.
Where the loneliness set in and I was just like that guttural crying at night and just, you know, we kind of go through these periods where it's like we're just releasing something. I thought, what is happening to me? So I started searching hypnotherapy because I went to one therapy session, ended up leaving feeling worse. And somebody in my Facebook feed posted, has anybody ever tried hypnotherapy before? And I thought, that's really interesting. So, of course, as soon as I started Googling it, I was open to the ads for Marissa Peer's school for Rapid Transformational Therapy. She had just started teaching globally. Or no, just a few years prior. And that's when I thought, okay, this sounds like it could be amazing, but as a career, because I was also looking to open a business. So I took the plunge. I healed myself through learning this method, through all of the practice sessions we get to do through with other students, and went, oh my God, this is perfect. This is exactly what I manifested. Now I can help people who are struggling with exactly the same thing I was. And I didn't even realize I was.
Well, right. And I wanted to ask you about that. Why do you think that there was a period of time that you didn't grieve? And then you started grieving. What do you think was going on in your mind? Or were you just, so tell me a little bit about that. I don't even want to.
Well, I think it was just the freedom, you know, because I had been a caregiver for so long. Like we never had children, but he was like my kid. Right. And it was, I never felt like I could travel or do things or go anywhere because I was always thinking, well, to the truth be told, I was extremely codependent. And I had no idea at the time, right? I didn't even know what that word was. When I heard it in one of the counseling groups, I was like, what? Like, but that sounds like me, but I just love him so much, right? So when you're wrapped up in someone else's mental health issues and addictions, and they are either depressed in bed, crying for days, or raging and telling you you're a piece of shit and it's all your fault. You're the reason I drink. Like you kind of go, I know it's the alcohol talking. I know this isn't the man I married. This is not the guy I know. right?
Right.
And so then when all of that passed and the guilt and the remorse set back in. So yeah, so there was a freedom because I met him when I was 20, 21,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I stayed with him for 47 years. So
Right.
of course, is like I said, I watched him die. I knew within days he would pass.
Yeah.
And so I stayed with him, and that was the hardest part. But then once he passed, I didn't expect to feel that freedom.
Yeah.
I felt elated, and I actually had to fake it at work to people
Right.
coming up to me going, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I said to my best friend who works with me, I said, "I guess this wouldn't be appropriate for me to go, 'It's okay. I'm finally free.'" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, you can't do that because it's not socially acceptable, you know?"
Well, it's
So,
true. And I mean, it's funny when I've had people who know. And so when I said I got divorced, they were like, congratulations. But other
yeah,
people were like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I look at them
no,
like, no, it's a congratulations thing. They're like,
yeah.
oh, okay. Because you don't know what to think because it's socially acceptable to be like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
And
I disagree with that too. I always congratulate people, because number one, if it wasn't meant to be, then the sooner you get out of it, the better.
yeah,
And number two, if it was you that did
yeah,
the breaking up,
yeah,
that takes
it
balls.
does. It
It
really
takes
does.
courage. It takes so much, you have to be so brave to do
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And that's a big decision to make. It's not something that anyone, should take lightly. And so
No.
it was a really big deal because I was with him 33 years, so it was a
Yeah.
really big. And so I wanted those congratulations because I was so proud of myself. Even my even my kids were like, "Mom, I'm so proud of you for choosing you." I was like, my kids said they're proud of me. It's like that was beautiful.
That
You
is
know?
amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing. That's so fantastic. It's so funny because a lot of my clients will at the end of a session say, "I have some work to do with my kids now. I
Yes.
have some apologies to make. I
Yes.
have to go and tell them how much I love them." You know?
I did that,
Yeah.
and in fact, I was re-apologizing for stuff, and one of my sons was like, "Oh my gosh, enough. You have apologized." I'm like, "I'm so sorry, though." But there's such a healing that comes from apologizing and not being defensive, letting your kids talk to you and say, "This was a hard thing for me."
Yeah.
And saying, I was in a really dark place at that time, but I'm so sorry that I talked to you that way or that happened or I said that thing because I think we can hold space for both of them, right? I was in a bad place and I know why I did it, but that doesn't excuse the behavior.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to apologize for the behavior, even though I know that's not me anymore. I was an
Yeah.
angry, screamy mom, mostly because I feel like I wasn't being supported and I was tired and we had 3 babies right in a row and one had special
Yeah.
needs. Oh my gosh, there's lots of reasons, lots of excuses I can make. But if you could push back the excuses and say, I'm so sorry that that hurt you and I want to better our relationship now. Oh my God, it's life
Yeah.
changing. I have such a good relationship with my kids now, and they can actually say things to me, that
Yeah.
and say, I need this or I need that, or mom, why are you saying that? Or why are you don't need to apologize, or this still hurt, or whatever. They have free reign to say whatever they want at this point. So,
That's so important, open communication and
yeah,
knowing that there's not going to be backlash or
right,
knowing that
right.
if there's anger, that's okay.
Yes,
Talk through it. Why are you feeling that? And the other thing is when our emotions come to us, just a reminder is that our emotions come to us for a reason, right? Like they're there to tell us a story.
okay,
Pay attention to what just happened. What can you either learn from that
yeah,
or what is happening that you have to fix or
right,
just pay attention to that, right? And as soon as you know the reason that the emotion came to you and you acknowledge that and then you have a plan, the emotion will go away. And
mhm,
we don't have to identify with it, right? Like
yes,
when we feel sad, we should say, I feel sad.
right,
Okay, why do I feel sad? And
right,
just really kind of look
right,
at that. rather than saying, I am sad, right? Or I
Okay.
am this, I am that. Because
Okay.
when you say I am, you identify with that emotion and
Okay.
you start to own it, right?
Yeah.
I am depressed. I am this,
Okay.
right? Because our minds, again, this is what I work with my clients with the subconscious mind, right? Our subconscious mind controls or influences 95 to 97%
Oh my
of
gosh.
how we think and act and feel, our behaviors, our decisions, our actions. And we think that, like, these thoughts, this is where the critical inner voice comes, right?
Right.
That grumpy ass critic that's in our head
Right.
that says, you're too fat, you're too old, you're
Right.
not smart enough, you're
Right.
this, you're that, you're this. You don't have to buy into those
Right.
thoughts. Know they're coming from a place that is holding on to some old belief from some past experiences that you've had,
Yeah.
right? But the good news is you can reverse that, because the only thing we can control are our thoughts, right? And our thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our life. That's the cycle that you want to focus on. So if you get that negative thought bubbling up into your head, you can talk to it and say, thanks for that suggestion, but I don't believe that anymore.
Right.
So don't give me
Oh,
that
I
thought,
love that. Oh, I
because
love
it's
that.
not helpful,
Yeah.
right? Your mind is trying to help you for some reason. There's many different reasons, but you can say to your mind, no, thanks. That's not a helpful thought.
Right.
I actually think the opposite. I actually think I'm pretty damn gorgeous,
Yes.
and I'm smart, and I'm resilient. Look at all this shit I got through in my life.
Right.
And I'm an awesome friend, and I have a big, beautiful heart. And don't tell me the negative stuff anymore, because that's not what I want to believe.
And
I believe this.
are we thinking things that people have told us as well? Because I feel like sometimes some thoughts come into my head. I'm like, these aren't my thoughts.
100%. 100%. But what happened at the time that you were told that thought is it created some of that sabotage inside of you, right? It created a negative feeling. And that, if a feeling sticks around long enough, it becomes a belief, a subconscious belief, right? So if you've spent years being put down by your spouse or whatever, right? You start to believe them. You start to believe, maybe I'm not smart. Maybe I don't have anything worth it to say. Maybe I'm not funny or kind, or maybe I'm just broken. And I really want people to stop saying that. I really want to stop saying broken.
Are you feeling trapped in a relationship that leaves you questioning your worth and sanity? Have you noticed the red flags and decided you can't live one more day in a toxic environment? Whether you've just left or are considering leaving a narcissistic partner, the book, Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse, is here to guide and support you. In this candid memoir, I share my 33-year struggle in a marriage to a nice guy that was marked by emotional manipulation and abuse, revealing how I broke free and reclaimed my life. If you've been waiting for a sign, this book is it. If you've ever felt isolated, confused, or hopeless in your relationship, Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse offers the understanding and guidance you need to break free and start your journey to healing. You are not alone, and you deserve a life filled with love, respect, and happiness. Order your copy today and take the first step towards reclaiming your life. And the thing is, I know that there's also leftover things. Many people may struggle with things from their childhood as well, right? Because
Absolutely.
we've heard these things from our parents who had their own baggage. And frankly, we're not talking about hypnotherapy and you know what I mean? I mean, maybe some of them were, I have no idea. But I think I feel like in some generations, there just wasn't that kind of work being done. And so, look, we have to remember they're human beings. They pass their baggage on to us, but we don't have to carry it. I'm tired of carrying some of this
Absolutely.
baggage.
Yeah, I've worked with so many women, Laura, who, in the middle of the session, we look at that. We look at
Yeah.
their parents and then their grandparents and their great grandparents. And I'll
Yeah.
say to them, how empowering does it feel that
Yes.
you get to stop that generational cycle right here, right now, right
Yes.
today? And you never have to feel that way for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you can empower your children, right? Because
Wow.
most of us do. The people that want the healing are the people that are hurting, but they were treated badly by their parents or their spouses.
Right.
And then they're not going to raise their kids that way, right? They're going to raise their kids in a loving environment. They're not going to be abusive verbally or physically towards their children, right? And those are the people that want that healing. And when I say, look, you've done this.
Yeah.
So now let's catch up your mind. Now let's dissolve all of that stuff in your subconscious, your inner mind, so that it starts to support you rather than sabotage you. Right.
That's amazing. That's
That's
just beautiful. And the thing I really like that you're saying is sometimes even just saying, I don't want to do what my parents did, or we may not even have the tools. You know what I mean? I feel like in some of the things you're talking about, I feel like you giving us some tools on how to walk it out, how to walk forward in loving ourselves, which then overflows right into our families and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So the number one thing that you need to remember is the way that we feel about anything, including ourselves, are the words we say to ourselves and the images we create in our imagination, right? So for example, if you have some social anxiety and you're supposed to go to an event, and what happens in your mind shows you, you can't go to that event. What's going to happen? You're going to walk in the room. You're going to feel like an outsider. You're going to feel like you're not wearing the right thing. You're going to feel fat. You're going to feel ugly. Nobody's going to want to talk to you. And your mind is giving you all these thoughts, right? They're not, like you said, they're not coming from you.
Yeah.
And right away you buy into it. Well, if you buy into that thought, then you tell your mind, okay, thanks for that. You were right in telling me that. And then that social anxiety just gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, which is a big part of depression, is that critical inner voice. You keep saying, you're right, you're right, you're right. And then the more you do that, the more that cycle spirals deeper and deeper. It's like walking the same path on a trail, right? These are your neural pathways in your mind, your thought processes. If you go back and forth on the trail that says you're no good, the trail is going to get very worn down and, cleared out. But what you need to do is venture into the woods where there's no trail and just carve a new trail for yourself. So when your mind starts giving you those images of you walking into this event and not feeling good about yourself or having nobody to talk to, all you need to do is give yourself the opposite images. You just create that. We can create images in our imagination. We have that power.
Yeah.
Right. And so once we do that, our mind pays attention. Our mind pays attention. It uses our words and our visualizations as a blueprint to create how it drives how we think, act, and feel.
Wow.
So I say to my clients, I say, your mind does the driving, but you tell it where to go.
Oh my gosh.
It's
great.
like getting into the back of a taxi and expecting the driver to just take you to your destination without you giving him the address.
Right.
It's like, no. You have to give your mind the instructions. You have to give your mind the destination, right? This is what we call manifesting, because when you start to get into that level of consciousness, I was just listening to Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Okay.
His Biology of Belief on Audible. And he gets crazy deep into it because he was a research scientist before he started really kind of preaching all of this.
Okay.
This is how you change, right? This is how you change your cycle. But, when you get into that level of consciousness where you're working at a subconscious level, so you're communicating with your mind directly, right? This is through meditation where our bodies relax. So our minds begin to open up. Then Bruce says it starts to touch on that spiritual element as well, right? Where you start feeling grateful and you start attracting in what you want as long as you feel you deserve it, right?
Okay.
So this is another big part of it. You need to praise yourself every day because praise builds us up and criticism withers us, withers anyone. So you need to praise yourself as much as you would praise your best friend, right?
It's crazy, right? And we do talk about that. Would you talk to your friend the way you talk to yourself, right?
Exactly.
And so that's a good practice because even I think when you're saying that we have to know we're worth, are we worth getting whatever it is we're trying to manifest? We have that belief system. And it's like, where's that coming from as well? Because sometimes that is things that have been said to us in the past, like people saying, who do you think you are that you would have a podcast or that you would have a business? And you know what I mean? Like, those kinds of things. And so
Yeah.
it's hard. So I know you probably work on that, trying to help people even believe in themselves that they can have what they say they want to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And usually I do it within 1 or 2 sessions.
That's amazing.
Because once you work at a subconscious level and you find the root cause, which is how I start my sessions with my clients, I'm not a traditional talk therapy, not that I have anything against that. It works for a lot of people. But what I do is I start with why you're feeling the way you do, not what are you feeling? Why are you feeling that? And as soon as we look at that root cause and we start to question those old beliefs and reframe them, we spend the next 90 minutes doing that. So by the end of the session, my clients are like, wow, I never would have discovered that. I never would have thought of that. I never would have remembered that. And they say, I feel like a weight has been lifted, right?
That's
because
good.
they start to take ownership of their lives and they start to kind of, like you said, it has something to do with what somebody said or what somebody did. And Marissa just did this really great thing on LinkedIn where she had a video of a bow and arrow.
Okay.
And she said, the bow is all the stuff that surrounds the arrow.
Okay.
But you are the arrow. Once you shoot out of the bow, what do you leave behind?
Right. You leave all that behind.
The bow does not matter anymore. All that matters is where you land up ahead.
Yeah.
Right? You just use the bow as your trajectory to get the hell out of there.
Yes.
Right?
Just jump off all the garbage.
Exactly. Leap of faith, they call it, right? And once you get like on the other side, you can kind of breathe and go, okay. And then if the anxiety sets in, this is the other thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
It's only because it's unfamiliar. Okay.
That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's feeling unfamiliar. Our body is panicking.
Absolutely. And so the reason why our minds work this way is because it still thinks the human is living in the Stone Age, right? Because this is why we have a comfort zone. This is why we don't like to step out of our comfort zone. It's not us that doesn't want to step out of it. It's our minds that prevent us from doing that. Because if we were living in the Stone Age and we wanted to go explore a new area of the jungle, that could mean a threat to our survival.
Right.
So the number one job of the mind is to help us survive.
Yes.
Anything that is unfamiliar.
It's so crazy, right? So it's wild because why we think negatively, I was told, is because our brain is trying to help us stay alive. So it's giving us all the things that could happen. And it's like, so we think it's a negative situation. But think about, like going on stage or public speaking, which everyone has a fear of. It's like, that's not going to kill you. You're not going to
No.
die, but your brain is going, oh my gosh.
Right. But people believe their brains.
Yes.
People believe what their minds are telling you. You think, like, I just watched the new Ricky Gervais special on Netflix last
Okay.
night, right? And he talks about thoughts.
Okay.
And he's like, I have a thought, and then I think I should say that thought. So it's not my fault, right? But here's the thing. You have power
Yes.
over your thoughts.
He's made a
That's-
living out of saying whatever
Absolutely.
he thinks.
And of course, it's comedy, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
comedy. He's taking a truth that everybody feels,
Yes.
that everyone experiences,
Yeah.
and flips it, right? To make it comedic.
Right.
But it's true. We all have these negative thoughts bubbling up, but we don't. The power that we have
Yeah.
is we don't have to buy back into them.
Yeah.
We can go, wait a second. And it takes skill because it takes repetition,
Right.
because your mind learns by repetition
Okay.
and positive images and words. Like you can't, and then the present moment.
Right.
You can't say, like, I want to scale my business next year. Like, it's all about what you want and insist on and require of yourself today. This, and then associate that with a positive feeling. I am going to love it when I'm confidence
Okay.
makes me feel so good,
Okay.
right? I feel good about myself. I feel confident. Other people like me. I feel at ease with myself. I put other people at ease just by being in their presence. People like me, like imagine yourself getting up on stage and speaking.
Yeah.
And give your mind this scenario. You're on stage, you're smiling. People like you. You look great. You feel great. People are engaged with what you have to say. You're getting good response, right? They're taking you as an expert. And when you give your mind those suggestions, the next time you get up on stage, it's going to be way easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Saying to yourself I like that idea of saying to yourself, what I have to say has value. And people, when I am speaking, people get value from this and enjoy it and things like that. So that's a great way to do it. My gosh.
Absolutely.
I could see where it would take practice, but I have to say, we've all been practicing the other way for so long.
Well,
We can
exactly.
learn something new.
Right. But how long do they say it takes to form a habit?
21 days, right?
Everybody knows that. A minimum of 21 days.
Yeah.
So every day for 21 days, people should practice that. From the morning they get up, look at themselves in the mirror. Hello, beautiful, right? I love Mary J. Blige. I started telling my clients that before Mary J. Blige came out with that song, Good Morning, Gorgeous. It's like, and it's not just a 5-minute meditation. And then you spend the rest of the day beating yourself up. Right. You have to kind of stay, and it's not a toxic positivity. I'm not saying you're not allowed to feel the other feels, but then know where that's coming from and don't identify with them. Right. Why am I feeling this way?
I like the idea of when I've seen things on the internet. So of course it's true. Is the thing where it says, it's not a bad life. Was it just a bad moment? You know what I mean? And so I think sometimes when people, I've heard people say, oh my gosh, my whole day is ruined, or I had a horrible day or whatever, when it was really just, this was a piece of shit moment in my day. You know what I mean? I mean, because I had, we're recording around the holidays. And so yesterday on Christmas, it was hard in the morning because my Christmas looks completely different than it ever has. And then after that, I was like, I had the best day. And so now when I think back, I have both, but it's like, I had the best day. Just because I had some crying time or some sad time doesn't mean everything was ruined. I let myself feel those feelings and I journaled about them. And then I was like, okay, but I'm so happy. And I did say to myself, I'm happy that I'm not in that toxic situation, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And that you said something so important there, Laura, because we do need to release our emotions, right? When we try to stuff them down, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And we don't let them out. That's when they get stored in our body and they start to eat at our organs. It starts to give us high blood pressure. It starts to give us indigestion and migraines and all of those things, right? There was a psychologist or psychiatrist, Canadian from Vancouver. I think he passed in the 50s, maybe. Don't quote me. His name was Dr. Henry Maudsley.
Okay.
And he said emotions that are not expressed in tears may make other organs weep.
Wow.
And I love that quote because it's really sums up the health crisis of this decade, right? When we think about all of the mental health that's on the rise cases, just from, again, the generational struggles with love, with showing love, with trauma, with stress in our families, because children will be traumatized. And that all that means is a feeling of stress, right? We all know that there's a range of trauma, but as soon as children feel stress and absorb their parents' stress, that's when they start to kind of become disassociated from themselves, because children under 5 they can't rationalize. They think whatever stress is happening in the environment is because of them. Because children are wired to seek their parents' approval, because their parents, again, they rely on their parents for survival. Right. And again, our minds don't know that our parents are going to take care of us. They're not going to leave us in the jungle, for some wild beast to eat us. But this is where the stress in the mind starts to happen. So that unless those children's needs are met, which is essentially to feel loved and important, like they matter, they feel safe and protected, right? Then they're going to start to think, I'm not worthy of that. So it's very true. So good for you for releasing. It's a good thing.
I've gotten better at that. I also I think it's hard when people say like, oh, forgive me for crying, or I'm so sorry for crying. And I think, oh my gosh, I know that there's not always the most appropriate situation to be doing the bawling. But I, as a woman, I like to cry in the shower, things like that, and then I sometimes think, oh, what movie could I put on that I could have a good cry, because I could feel the emotions inside of me. But at the grocery store is not the place to be having the knockdown, drag out cry, that guttural cry. And sometimes you need those. That's why that shower is a good place for that.
Absolutely. Or in the car,
Oh, yes.
whatever.
As long as I don't have to go anywhere where people are going to, see me after. But yes, I love that. I do a lot of stuff in the car. I love to sing and listen to podcasts. I also like to talk to God. I don't know. He's in the car.
Yeah, it's our space. It's our space. Absolutely.
It's a safe place. Well, Diane, thank you so much for being here and sharing this information with us. But I was going to say, where can people reach you? Where can people find you?
Absolutely. My website is advancedmindhealth.ca because it's in Canada. So there's lots of information about what I've been talking about. On my media page, there's other podcasts where I've talked about how the mind works and the power that we have over it. And you can book a call with me there just to say hi or to ask some questions. I love meeting new people and talking to new people. So, or on Instagram at Advanced Mind Health as well. So,
and we'll have all that stuff in the show notes. So thank you so much for sharing everything with us. It's been great. And I think it's going to be really helpful. I look forward to working with you because I know it's just going to be really helpful to me. And because I really like what you're saying, talk therapy is good. And I do talk therapy as well. But I also have been trying so many other things because we have a whole body. And so I do lots of different things to reach all different parts of my body. I do massage, I do exercise. I just do a lot of different things because it's the whole body. And that's how I've been feeling. That's how I feel like I want to heal, is through my, whole body. So
absolutely. And the body is connected with the mind, right?
That's right.
It's how the mind is manifested in our bodies.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So that's important because we will store it, won't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. Get it out. Call me, work with me, or look at my other podcasts for some more tips and tricks.
Yes, that'll be perfect.
Everybody's got power over how they feel.
I love that. Well, that's a great place to end. Thank you so much for being here. And guys, if anything resonated with you today, will you please leave a review on Apple Podcasts? And of course, reach out to Diane and leave a comment on social media and let us know you listened today. So thanks, Diane, for being here. And I'll talk to you guys next time.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining me today on the That's Where I'm At podcast. Did the story today resonate with you? Do you think others would benefit from hearing the stories we are telling? Please go to Apple or Spotify right now to leave a review so everyone in podcast land will know you love the show. We want to continue sharing stories of hope and healing. I'll be back next time. I'll talk to you then.